On today's show, Glen Willis is back with part two as we look ahead to Las Vegas Summer League and the Hawks and everything you need to know for the next couple of weeks in the desert. And it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland. It is July. Summer League is on the horizon. I am joined today, once again, by my friend Glen Willis of ATL on 29 and Peachtree Hoops. This is actually part two of two with myself and Glen. So if you missed part one, I recommend strongly beginning with part one of this conversation. It should be in this same podcast feed right now. Please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcasts. You can find us on Apple and Spotify, YouTube, etc. Again, part one available right now. This is going to be part two with myself and Glen on the Hawks and Summer League. The Hawks listed only one player at center on the 15-man roster, and it's a guy named Jake Stevens, who really isn't a big prospect. So they're going not smaller. Like, for instance, Asa Newell, I think, can play center and probably will play center at some point in Summer League. Yep. But he's listed at forward, only forward, not even forward center. I don't care about that much about that, but I thought it was notable to me. And we can start with Asa if you want to, but do you have a thought on like the front court alignment here? Because they're clearly not loading up on true bigs. They have three guys who are like 6'9", 6'10", or bigger, and everybody else is either a wing or a guard. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it does feel like they're built to play pretty fast. You know, Asa has good foot speed, and moves really, really well. And so that's what it feels like. Well, I guess we'll see. And I won't be there in person for the first game, but I'll be there for games 2, 3, and 4. I'll be sure to watch the first game on TV if my workday kind of allows that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
But for me, I think Asa is going to play a lot, and a lot is going to be built around him. DHO, middle pick and roll, getting him to the rim, all that sort of stuff, and then even like some off ball cutting. He's a pretty instinctive cutter. And those things. The thing I want to watch for Asa is the rebounding. I think that's one of the concerns that kind of came in there. He's not the broadest body, all that sort of stuff. He's pretty bouncy. But when he's going up against a center who's 26 years, or center or power forward that's 26 years old, this is his 4th or 5th year in Summer League, played in Europe, whatever it might be. How does he deal with guys who have legitimate kind of grown man bodies, and how does that show up rebounding wise? Because that's going to be a critical thing for him to develop, for him to become a legit, at some point in the near future, a full-fledged kind of rotation player. The rebounding is a make or break improvement area for Asa, and I'm interested to see how much effort he puts into that in the games he plays here.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm realizing as we're talking that you and I haven't talked, at least in this setting, since the draft. And he was, of course, the first round pick and all of the draft stuff and the trade stuff and all that. I've heard your podcast, but for people that are in my audience, how did you feel about that selection? After all that's settled, you're on the board at 23. What did you make of adding Newell to the mix?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It was an interesting pick to me. On the human beings, and honestly talked about this at the availability that he did with Asa, right? Like hard worker, grinds, wants to get better, all that sort of stuff. And sometimes you ask yourself, like, are the Hawks over-indexing on that a little bit? It is so important to bring the kind of human beings into your process. They're going to respect their teammates, respect their coaches, be coachable, take instruction, all that sort of stuff, take the assignment that's given to them. And that's critical. But I think what some fans look at as, is he going to be able to learn how to shoot? Now, in the last couple of years, I've come to the perspective that I think NBA teams can basically feel like they can teach almost anybody to shoot, as long as they're willing to put in the work. But for me, it's what they're looking for defense. I think defensively, his versatility and his ability to defend in space, all that sort of stuff. The key for me is like he's got to be next to some strong, until he's improves his rebound, he's got to be next to some strong rebounders. Like, is there a future where he and Jalen are playing together at the 4 and the 5, and the Hawks are just playing really, really fast? Maybe. Is that a thing? But he's another guy that needs to work on his body, get stronger, and kind of grow to that body. and for me, it's like I don't want Hawks fans to see him struggling to rebound against. I can't remember who their first game is against, but to see and to think like, oh, he can't rebound. It's like, he's young.
He's 19.
He's got to experience this type of NBA environment where they're guys that are 40 pounds heavier than him that have had time to kind of grow into their bodies and develop their bodies and stuff like that. So don't turn the TV off for the first 2 or 3 times he's pushed off of a rebound. Let's see how it goes across the week and a half of play.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine in this setting. I think he's, the fact that he's so athletic is really helpful. He has some natural touch that's helpful too, as far as the shooting projection is concerned. I stand with what I said at the beginning of this conversation. Like, it's not really a bigs medium, but he is a run and jump athlete, which can help. Yeah, you start playing with tempo. Like, I think he'll look fine in summer league. But he is 19 years old, and my rookies are bad framing is not really applied to summer league as much as like actual NBA games. But the principles are the same. Like, if you do see some adult bigs, and I use that term kind of flippantly, but some older, bigger guys, like, he might have some issues, but that's good for him. I think the Hawks probably would like that, honestly. Have him thrown in the deep end and just be like, hey, and he might start at center in the first game. I don't know right now as we're talking. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Looking at this roster, he might just be the 5 to open games. So,
yeah. And it's one of those things in the future. Like, he talked about wanting to improve his ball handling and shooting. He talked about that in the press conference when you and others were there covering it. And if he's going to play the 4, kind of maybe slot in as the backup 4 or sometime that, when Jalen's off the floor, you need somebody who can run the floor, finish in transition, put pressure on the rim in transition. So some of his natural skills will pop in those areas right away. Like, right away, that will pop in those areas. It's the nuanced areas that are going to be what he's going to have to just need some time to get acclimated to.
As we're talking over the weekend, the only player other than Asa Newell and Kobe Buffkin that is signed to a contract is Ellie Ndiaye, the 2-way addition who Hawks fans probably haven't seen much of at all. He's been in Real Madrid playing with a couple of our old friends, actually. He just played a season with Eddie Tavares, Bruno Fernando, and Usman Garuba all on the team. 3 former Hawks. Now, Garuba didn't really play for the Hawks, but he was on the team. But Ndiaye was not really on my radar. I mean, I've seen him play now more than I had then. Watched some clips. I'm sure you had the same experience I had. Like, oh, I have some stuff to watch now. But they like him enough to have already signed him to a 2-way officially. They didn't have to do that, and they did. So 6'8" forward, younger guy. I think he's 20 right now. Yeah, 20. He'll be 20. Maybe he's turned 21. But out of Senegal originally, 6'8", 210 or so. What did you? If you've seen him at all, I don't know if you have or not. But an interesting guy. They've obviously invested something in. 2-ways are not full contracts, but they like him enough to sign him.
Yeah, I mean, the size and athleticism pops with him as well. The offensive skill is, and when you watch, so I think I watched 2 full games of his, and offensively he was the 4th or 5th priority. Basically the whole time he was on the floor.
All the time.
But he's asked to, be a spot up shooter. He got better as a cutter and kind of creating pressure on the backside of the play. His feel kind of improved, I think, across last year as well. But the defensive motor is super high. He's a strong rebounder, for his size. He's only 210, but he looks like he's throwing away around more than 210, and when he's being very physical as a defensive player. The ball handling, not really a thing yet. The shooting, I mean, again, I'm not an NBA shooting coach, but nothing looks crazy abnormal about it to me. So there's nothing that jumps out like, whoa, what is he doing there? That kind of thing. And so I think he's another, legit athlete with good size that should be able to defend the 3 and the 4, maybe even switch on to some more average type guard. I don't think you want him on, Shea or someone like that right off the bat. But being a guy who's being a supportive kind of defensive player and can defend, decent sized forwards, I think that's a good starting point. Sort of like the other guys we talked about with Butler. Interested to see like how clunky is the offense in the first game. Now he played on a very good team, in Europe, championship level team in Europe. So I think for him, what they're asking him to do is not going to be brand new to him. But if they push him into a role where we want to run more DHOs through you, we want you to handle the ball in this setting, we want when the ball kicks to the weak side to get into an impromptu second side screen, like that processing that kind of comes from that area. That stuff he never did on his team in Europe, right? Never did that stuff. And so it's probably going to be a little bit choppy in the first game or so. And again, what I look for is not perfecting it by the second quarter of the second game. It's like get 10% improvement game to game to game. And I think this is going to be a great setting for him to get to do some things he's never had an opportunity to do before.
I agree. And I mean, I think they're more and more we're seeing they're just like to add rangy, athletic forwards. Basically, this is you're kind of it's a mold. It's a piece of clay that can be molded. Basically, 6'8", athletic guy with some skills, comfortable, as you said, comfortable playing a smaller role on offense. Probably needs to play a smaller role on offense from what I've seen so far. But another bet. And I'm intrigued by him. I mean, I'm not like he was this is not gospel, but people that I follow closely that do even more draft than I do had him as like a draftable grade player, like a top 75, 80 guy in the class. He didn't get picked, but similar to Kobe Johnson, we'll talk about in a second as well. They were both kind of in that and the Butler, honestly. All those guys were like draftable, maybe in the late second round kind of players, and they weren't picked, but that's the Hawks game, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I hope he's excited to get the opportunities he's going to get with the Hawks in summer league, and it's one of those things like even when it's choppy, I know the Hawks are just going to be supportive of like keep working. That's the mindset they want their players to have at all times. Like I said, it'll be fun to see how he improves from game to game.
Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish that managing your money felt just a little bit easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it absolutely can. Whether you are growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over all of your finances. And Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's instead a complete financial command center. You track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth at the same time. Having all your financial tools in one place makes things easier and more convenient, so you're actually not wasting any time with juggling multiple apps. And if you're anything like me, honestly, you might have a ton of subscriptions piled up, for instance, from the past, whenever you've kind of accumulated along the years, and Monarch Money can help you clean them that all up in a very, very fast time period. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Another guy who actually Hawks fans should be familiar with a little bit anyway is Jacob Toppin, who finished the year last year on a two-way after he's kind of actually arrived mid-season from the Knicks in that same two-way role. 6'8" forward from Kentucky originally, played I think only like 8 games in College Park, but was very good there. Was great with the G League team in Westchester. I don't know what's going to happen to him contractually. He's a restricted free agent. He had the two-way qualifying offer. But stop me if you heard this before, Glenn. Another rangy 6'8" forward type that the Hawks might be interested in. Brother of Obi, of course. Well, what did you? I know you saw some of him last year with the Hawks, but even before that, like, what do you make of Jacob Toppin?
Yeah, I mean, the athleticism is there. Good length as a defender. Pretty good speed, kind of play at the Hawks' pace. In those things, and looks like he knows what he's doing, and he played in other G League settings where they had a high expectation that you play within the concepts and all that sort of stuff. The one of the things I think maybe fans don't realize is that you might be watching a guy at Summer League, say Jacob Toppin plays 2 games with the Hawks, and then all of a sudden you get the tweet from so-and-so like Jacob Toppin signed a 2-way contract with,
somebody else.
He's I guess restricted, right? But it's a little more unusual for that to be a thing that matters with a guy coming off of a 2-way contract. But everyone, all NBA teams and their executives and their front offices and everything, they descend upon Vegas, and that's when they start, talking to agents and trying to find the best agents. The agents doing their job, trying to find the best landing spot for their player. And so it's just something you have to kind of be ready for as a guy who's like, oh, we watched him play 2 games for the Hawks, but the Hawks did make a commitment. And for me, my feeling is for guys who are on X10s or might be on 2-ways, the Hawks probably saying, we're going to watch you guys play here in Vegas and decide who we're going to prioritize on a 2-way or not. But that doesn't prevent another team from coming in and swooping in and, and giving a guy a commitment that you're not ready to make, and then he's gone. So that happens sometimes. Yeah,
I've been saying this for like 2 weeks now, but 2-ways are very fluid in general. They're not guaranteed. They do get changed over quite a bit. Right now, the Hawks have if you read between the lines, like they have probably 4 or 5 guys for 3 spots on 2 ways, even before you bring in anybody else from the outside. And, last year, good example of this, we haven't had one from the outside for a while for the Hawks, but last summer, they signed Keaton to the 2-way in the middle of Summer League. Like they already had him under contract. I think it was executive. I think it was Exhibit 10. But they were like, no, we're signing him today. Yeah. Like I went home from the arena one day and they signed him. I was in the car driving back to the hotel to record the podcast and they signed him to 2-way. So it was like that can happen.
What very well could happen there is he had another offer in hand and the Hawks like
exactly
they don't want to lose you.
Yeah. Or sometimes also then we'll stop going on this tangent. But occasionally if the Hawks, I don't know how honestly will be, but I know with Travis and even with Landry, like. You also there's the human connection where it's like, hey, this guy's got a good offer for him that will be better than what we can give him. Let's just let him go. That could definitely happen too. They have Toppin to our point earlier. He's restricted, but if he got an offer somewhere else and the Hawks were like, you know what, let's just let him go. That would not be surprising either. So that could happen with Keaton as well. Keaton's the same situation. He's not playing Summer League, but they're both in the exact same spot where technically they can't sign without the Hawks being able to match. But Atlanta might just be like, you know what, let's shake hands and separate ways.
Absolutely.
So Toppin and Ndiaye and Newell are more, bigger guys. Kobe Johnson is more of like a true wing, but Kobe is Jalen's brother. We already talked about him a little bit before. Defensively is definitely his calling card. I thought he was draftable in my opinion. I think I had him in the 50s somewhere, which isn't crazy, but for a guy whose offense is a big work in progress right now, he's that good defensively. Like I really, really love his defense. He is not the athlete that Jalen is. I'll say that, but I do like Kobe Johnson, and I think everyone kind of laughed when he signed with the Hawks because it was not exactly a surprise that he would want to play with Jalen and be around Jalen. But he's a real prospect. I said that for a reason. Like he's not a Jalen's brother throw-in. He's actually a guy that has interest.
Yeah, this is not a million years ago when Paul Millsap's brother played for the.
I used the exact same. I don't know if I used the exact same reference point on the show, like literally the same one. I was like, "Hey, this is not when Paul's brother was playing, and he was not a prospect." Yeah. Kobe actually is.
So yeah, I mean, I think the thing to love about him is he plays so hard. He's so committed to defense. He was all defensive conference, all defensive selection. Good instincts in field, and just cares. Really, really cares about making an impact. As a defender, I'm not going to ding him because he's not a Jalen Johnson level athlete. There's he's in the 98th percentile of athleticism in the league. So, but he's more like 6'6" to 200, 205, something in that range. I think I had to look it up. But even for his size, he's a committed rebounder. He works really, really hard. He's a good offensive rebounder, has a great instinct on the offensive glass. And so it's just a guy that okay, Kobe's going to go out and play his tail off. Now we just got to get him pointed in the right direction on technique and concept and all those sorts of things. And if he's anything like Jalen, he's going to embrace that stuff and soak it up. And so, it's funny, like if you look at this roster, you look at all the defense they have, I feel like we might watch the Hawks get 8 stops in a row on defense, and on the other end score on 2 of the 8 sessions, depending on who's on the floor when that happens.
There are some lineups that are definitely geared that way. A lot of defensive first, which I'm in for that. But no, I mean Kobe's is definitely a defense first prospect. He's a really good passer. That's my favorite thing about his offense is his passing. I think he averaged 6 assists per possessions, which is a good number for a non-point guard, in particular in college. Moves the ball well, unselfish player. The shooting isn't a total 0. It's kind of weird, but it's not like he wasn't shooting 20%. He was making some shots by the end of his college career. I just don't know. I mean, the big question is can he be an NBA player offensively? And I don't know the answer to that. But defensively, he definitely can be. And if there's enough there, then again, he's on Exhibit 10. That is definitely happening. And those can be converted 2 ways too. So if he blows up in the way that Keaton did last year, you could wake up in the middle of Summer League and be like, Kobe Johnson, 2-way contract. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, it might be worth a 2-way because the Hawks really need to be developing another defender at we'll say the 3, on the wing, a bigger wing defender like him. That's not something they really kind of have in the works, right now. So that he might be the one guy who can, really be worth that investment. And like I said, I think watching this team play defense will be fun. We might have to cover our eyes now and then on offense.
Yeah, and Kobe Johnson, I think, is only 22. a number of these guys were in this past draft. Just to say this out loud, like they're a little bit younger. Butler was in this draft. Obviously, Kobe Johnson was in this draft. Ndiaye was in this draft. Newell, Davon Smith were all in this most recent draft, and also Nelly Jr. Joseph was in this draft too. So they have all these guys that were like they're coming out of college now. And they're not super young. They weren't one and done. They're adults. They're 22, 23 years old, but this is their first pro experience. There's 4 or 5 of those guys on this roster, and Kobe is one of those guys. Speaking of experience, I will lovingly refer to these 2 gentlemen together as the old guys, and they're both named Jack. The Hawks have signed 2 Australians named Jack, who are old for summer league, but they also have actual like real NBA experience. Jack McVeigh and Jack White. Jack McVeigh is 29 years old already. That's ancient in summer league terms, but he was on a 2-way literally last year with Houston in the NBA. Like he was around the NBA last season, played some games for Houston. Big time shooter, takes a lot of them, etc. Jack White played college at Duke in America and has NBA experience with Denver and Memphis. Has bounced around. He'll be 28 in August. They're both like kind of wing 40 types. I don't know how much you watch these guys, but like they're both overqualified and kind of odd summer league inclusions. But also, if you're the Hawks and they want to come play with you, and you have the Australian connection with Dyson, it's like, yeah, come on down and play with us. I don't know if they're going to be prioritized. I have many questions, but they're both good players.
Yeah, and you wonder if this is somewhere Dyson kind of help these guys, like kind
would
of
not surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll start with Jack White, like another high motor guy, blue guy, team first guy. For his size, is a good rebounder. Has some decent kind of defensive versatility. Not bad guarding on ball, but just coming out of the Australian kind of program, and he's going to have a lot of the fundamental stuff kind of pretty down, especially he should at the age he's at, the experience level he's at.
Yep.
But he's just a kind of a high processor, low mistake guy, and he's experienced and has a lot of good energy. And this is another example we talked about. Like you go look at G League rosters, you see guys in the front court who are experienced. I mean, his experience is going to help the young guys a ton. Ndiaye is like not quite getting is like, hey, sit down and watch Jack White play in that position for a few possessions and see how he's doing that. But he's an interesting one, for me in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're not exactly the same player, but they're similar size. So, for instance, the Hawks are listing White at 6'6", 225. That's thicker guy. But McVeigh is 6'8", 215. They're both within a year of each other in age. Like, they both played, I think, Australian national team stuff together at some point. Like, I don't know if they were a package deal. They probably weren't. It's just really interesting to me that they both chose to play with the Hawks because they're kind of like battling each other in some ways. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just kind of an odd situation. Because again, like if you were just if the entire goal was to win a summer league game, they'd probably play a lot, honestly, because they're older guys, they're pros. I just don't know what the Hawks are going to want to do with them, and maybe we'll know more by the time I post this podcast in a few days. But like, I just don't know until we get there, like how much of a big deal they're going to be. I mean, McVeigh was again on a 2-way last season in the NBA at 28.
Yeah, and McVeigh I think swings a little bit more offense, got the shooting, that sort of thing. Where White swings more defense, but White's just a really smart player on both ends of the court. McVeigh defensively, I think not what White is, and
Agreed.
Probably has to work a little bit harder. He's not quite as big. But just again, a high floor kind of player, and one of those games where if they're close game in the fourth quarter, and the head coach decides he wants to win this game, you might see these two guys out on the floor closing the game just because of their sheer experience.
Yeah, these are real adults by summer league standards. This is a funny one. I'm going to be careful how I pronounce this. The Hawks also have Javin Johnson on this team. So you have Jalen Johnson, the star forward. Kobe Johnson is Jalen's brother. Javin Johnson is no relation, but a 6'6" wing who was with the Warriors G League team the last couple years. Interesting guy, 6'6", pretty athletic guy. I don't know that much about him. He's probably the guy I've seen the least out of everyone on this list, if I'm being 100% honest right now. But an interesting, like, anytime you can get a 6'6" guy who can shoot it, it's like not a bad idea, generally speaking. And he already has G League experience, so he's not like a zero prospect either.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, can shoot it. Good size. Coming out what some Hawks fans don't maybe realize is playing in the Warrior system, which is based on motion and movement. He should adapt pretty quickly to what the Hawks do. A lot of similar concepts that are there. So he's not always the most assertive guy physically, even though he has decent size. So I think when you watch him play, sometimes when he attacks the rim, he's a little bit hesitant and tends to kind of shy away from contact and not as aggressive as you want there. Much more comfortable on the perimeter, catch and shoot, relocating, all the dribble relocation, all that sort of stuff is all there for him. And so I think it's nice I think he's a good addition to the roster. We talked about how he might be needed on offense just as the sheer gravity and floor spacer that he offers that, maybe the most of anyone on this roster. We'll see. But like I said, coming out of the Warriors system, he should acclimate really, really quickly to what the Hawks are doing on offense.
Yeah, and the G League is not exactly the same, but he has played a bunch of G League games, and that gives you an idea of what he actually brings to the table. And he was taking, I think it was like 7.5 or 8 per game, which means probably 11 or 12 per 100 possessions from three with Santa Cruz. Like, he's a bomber. That seems to be his primary appeal. He played at DePaul. I don't remember that at all, to be honest with you. But he played at DePaul 5.
You know how much college basketball I watch.
Well, I know, but he wasn't totally off the radar. Just an undrafted guy in 2023. So, 6'6", 192 listed shooter. Totally fine to have at Summer League. Makes sense to me. Two more guys. They're both kind of. One's definitely a big. The other one's kind of a big. So you probably have noticed this if you're just listening to this podcast. Now, we've only talked about one actual big so far. It's Asa Newell. Here are the other two. Jake Stevens is the only guy listed at center on the roster. 6'11", 270 from Chattanooga. Played with the Hornets last year in Summer League. Has some international experience. Obviously, just a center, like a true center. And then Nelly Jr. Joseph is a rookie in this particular draft. One undrafted, but played at New Mexico. 6'10", more of a combo big, it seems like. Listed as a forward, good rebounder. Anything to strike you about either one of these guys that's worth noting is I would imagine they probably somebody has to play out of these two guys at some point. Probably.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I know more about Jake Stevens because my daughter lives in Chattanooga. So I've seen him play. Yeah, I've seen him play. Really productive offensive player. For a center, a really, really productive. And so the floor spacing that he offers, he's 25 years old. But his stats at Chattanooga were really impressive. I think he averaged 22 a game, 10 rebounds, good passer, for his size. So he's a high IQ player, on both ends of the court. Doesn't turn the ball over, soft hands, just really, really, really good hands. And as is sometimes the case when you get a guy who leans more offense, not the best lateral mover on defense, knows how to use his size to take up space still. He's not a vertical athlete. For a throwback like me, you think about a guy like Bill Laimbeer who defended with literally never having no verticality at all. So it's kind of an extreme example. Now, Bill Laimbeer anchored some of the best defensive teams in NBA history, so I'm not trying to put that on him, but it's just kind of interesting. The interesting thing there. And so that'll be the thing is what can he do on defense to kind of keep himself playable on the floor? Because offensively, he has a pretty unique ability to kind of impact the game offensively for a guy kind of from his background.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about the offense. You just laid it out, but he's massive and he really can shoot by all accounts. He had some really interesting shooting numbers in college and also internationally this last season. Overseas, had some good shooting numbers, 50, 40, 90 kind of splits. Was it BMI before Chattanooga? Was really good there. I just don't know if he can play defense, but we'll see. If he can, maybe they have to juice some lineups. Maybe maybe he'll play with Newell occasionally and give Newell kind of that opportunity to kind of be the cover-up guy at the 4. That could be fun to see for Newell too, honestly, where he might be in a situation in his NBA career where he's playing next to a big that can't move as well and maybe has to kind of be that kind of all things to all people kind of role in the front court. So I look forward to that. And Junior Joseph seems like more of a defensive prospect to me. I've seen him play a handful of times. Offensively, not a total zero, but certainly he's a big rangy rebounder, 6'10". Again, listed as only a forward. I don't know how much that matters. The Hawks might spend 2 seconds on their actual roster listings. I don't know, but I found that interesting because it feels like he's like maybe the backup or third center on this summer league team, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's 23, really good size. For they placed him at 4, probably. I think he's 6'9", wingspan. I think is 7.
Yeah, they had him listed at 6'10", 245. I think wingspan over 7 feet tall. Like he's center size. It seems like.
Oh, so he's put on more size since the last potentially so, but he's a high motor guy, good with shot blocking instinct. So he's going to be the kind of the opposite, the yin to yang, and so for him, he's a surprisingly good kind of low post finisher, decent percentage kind of down there. His footwork is good. He has decent hands, but the physical frame is kind of what you're looking for here. He moves well on defense, can defend. I think the 4 or the 5 can probably switch onto some average threes and space and not get killed. And so what you're on the other ends, like I said, not a perimeter shooter, really just a finisher at the rim is really what he has offensively. And he's got to get better as a free throw shooter to be an NBA guy. But I think, again, when you talk about the culture aspects that the Hawks are indexing for, plays really hard on defense, very committed, cares, all that sort of stuff. So in that sense, I think it'll be kind of fun to watch there too.
Yeah, I agree. And there's always this over the course of the week, generally the Hawks and most teams will try to get guys in at least once if they can. Like there might be 1 or 2 guys that don't play the whole time, but like they do try to like kind of almost, not every team does this, but like almost game for game, like, hey, this is going to be this unit's going to play more today to have them a chance to showcase themselves at least once during the week. I don't know if there is a guy on this team that may not play. Like there usually is 1 or 2, but I don't know who those guys are. My takeaway, honestly, looking at the roster, I don't know if you agree, there really isn't anybody that strikes me as like a just summer league filler. Like they have everybody there is like a real basketball player.
Yeah.
Like I don't mean that in a negative way, but sometimes just like, oh, that guy has no chance. And there's not really any of those guys on this one.
Yeah. It's for me. I mean, for me, the last, since they hired Quinn, it's been refreshing to see them getting the profile types of players they want into the system. Before Quinn took over, I mean, we go watch the in the Bud years, and it would be like their draft picks, and then these other guys who were just
I
not NBA, not even remotely NBA prospects at all.
One day we'll do story time of those first few summer leagues that I was covering, where it was like, man, this is like useless. I mean, I don't mean that, and it just was like, wow, there's a lot of guys on here that I'll never see play again.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I know. One year I went like, I think it was JC was playing, but one of my favorite all-time summer league players is Tyler Cavanaugh, and he was a lot of fun to watch. That's a throwback.
That's right. 2-way guy, Tyler Cavanaugh.
It was hilarious to see a guy in his first game on the floor telling guys who had been around the league 4 to 5 years that they were doing everything wrong.
Perfect.
So he's got to be a coach somewhere at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true. Sicko kind of way back in the machine there, stuff like that. But the thing that's different now is that Hawks are actually attracting prospects into their development orbit, we'll say. Where before it was just like, let's get our draft picks some experience and just grab whoever's available. This is an actual functional roster defensively. I think they're gonna have to do some work to keep enough offense on the floor, by mixing and matching. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate all that sort of stuff. But I think this is going to be a really fun team to watch. And for me, I'm heading to Sacramento tomorrow. And I will burn money watching a couple of Braves games probably while I'm there and regret it after the fact. We'll see how that goes. But I think this team will be more fun to watch right now.
Yeah, probably.
And the main thing is, my wife has a cousin that just had a child, and so has a newborn at home, and she has a 5 and a 7-year-old. So we're taking the boys for the week, and so I'll take the boys to the game, and probably pretend to root for the A's with them, to give them the full experience. But that'll be a lot of fun, even if I'm like, oh, this team's hard to watch. It's about the kids stuff. So
it is. It's just gonna be fun. I'm excited for this. Summer League. I do think they were, to your point, offense might be a little bit of a challenge at times, but like it speaks to the development. And I know people kind of roll their eyes sometimes at Quinn, and I'm sure now Ansi talking a lot about process and development, but they actually believe it. Like Quinn does believe in development in a way that not every head coach in the NBA does. Like he's definitely about, you're trying to win that night for sure. It's the NBA. Results matter a lot, but you can tell that Quinn was a college coach and a G League coach, and like he cares about this stuff, and honestly does too. And I think we've seen the results. Like, the pipeline matters. College Park drew rave reviews the last couple of years for good reason. The pipeline, they've gotten real stuff out of two-way contracts. Keaton really helped them this last year out of necessity, but also he really helped them. Plowden had the one big game. Like even if it's one or two or 5 or 10 games, that matters. And they approach it like it matters, which I do appreciate as like a total sicko, and I know you are too. It's like this stuff should matter to you. It's not the NBA Finals, but filling out your summer league team in like a serious way is like a small thing, but it's like it's nice to see.
Yeah, it's fun, and if there are people listening that haven't had a chance to do it yet, it's fun to go there. You sit in a small gym and you watch half the actual Hawks roster show up and sit on that one row of seats that are there. You can walk up and like pat Mark Cuban on the back, and he'll say hi to you, and don't ask him for a picture though, because while he's watching the game, he'll turn around and say, "I'm watching the game." I've seen that happen 100 times. Yeah, so you and I have a million things we could say that these are the things that happen that are there. So it's a lot of fun. When the Lakers are playing in the big arena, it's packed and no fun to be in there.
Thursday, I will be in there. I will be there for the Cooper Flag versus Lakers game on Thursday, and it's going to be a
yes.
Circus.
So I'm there for games 2, 3, and 4. For those games where the Hawks don't play, I'm playing it by ear. I have clients in Vegas, and they do kind of dinner and drinks or something like that kind of thing with clients there. We'll see. But otherwise, going to catch 3 full days of basketball and see what kind of time I have with the other days in there.
It'll be nice to see you when you get there. As for people listening, just as a reminder quickly, the Hawks play on Friday's the opener. It's at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 local against Miami. Then they play on Sunday, Monday, and then the final scheduled game is Thursday. They'll have one more after that. We don't know when it will be. They will play at least 5, probably exactly 5, but at least 5. 4 scheduled now. And I'll be there for the first 4. Anything after that, you're on your own. I'll be at home watching them for the 5th game. But first 4, I'll be there. Glenn will be there for 2 for 4. We'll be covering it. I'll probably beg you to come on again at the end or something and talk about what we saw. And listen, I'm not kidding just because you're here. People always ask me, where are the rest of the player capsules? And I say, that's what August and September are for. So we'll have to like take a little breather. And we have a bunch more to get to. Now, we did lose. In between last time you and I talked, we did lose 2 potential player capsules, and that's unfortunate for us because Terrence Mann and George Niang were on the list, and now they're off the list, and that's unfortunate. But perhaps we can do one on the new guys.
Karis LeVert.
And Karis, that's 3. Wow, we've lost a lot of guys recently. Maybe we'll have to do a Porzingis player capsule. He hasn't been on the team, but it's like maybe we just do a little Porzingis, Alexander Walker, Kennard, and then we still have Trey, Jalen, Dyson, Zach. There's guys. We have guys to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that.
If we don't do at least 45 minutes on MoGay, people are gonna be mad.
Agreed on that. My boss at Locked On, Nick Angstead, who hosts the Mavs podcast, the one he always makes fun of me about is when we did Garrison Matthews for an hour. That's the one he always brings up, and it's true. It was total sicko content. But he's like, if you can do that, you can do anything. I'm like, that's true. If I have Glen Willis, I can talk about anything for any length of time. We can do it. I promise we could.
Can't run out of things to say.
Thank you, sir, for being here. Please plug everything you got going on. I know you got a Patreon, you got a podcast. I think you wrote a piece for Hoops during the draft process. What's going on in Glenn's world?
Yeah. Wes did the job he should be doing and lured me back in to do some writing, help with draft content.
Come on, Wes.
So I mean, Wes and the team over there are they're killing it over there. So I like to always say, promote those guys. You'll see me on social promoting other content creators, their podcasts, try to do my part and bring visibility to that. So for me, I like to promote other people even more than mine, but if you're not following me yet, at Willis_Glenn on Twitter, I always forget what my handle is on Blue Sky, but you can find me. And ATL on 29, I have a Patreon. You can find the links to that in the bio on both Blue Sky and Twitter. Appreciate the support that I get over there. I'll probably do a summer league recap. I might do one after every game, just kind of do 10 minutes. For me, I like to fire up the video and just talk to a camera. Brad Rowland style is what I call it in my head. And see how that goes. But then once we get past summer league, we'll be in that dry season. There's about 6 weeks where there's kind of nothing happening unless some surprise trade happens or whatever. But I'll be doing basically 20 to 30 minute video breakdown of every player on the Hawks roster, offense, defense, just highlighting some of the things they're good at, not so good at, and those things. So the video content is already getting worked on for that season where there's nothing else for us to consume. So that's kind of the plan for the summer there.
Yeah, that was the original creation of the player capsules, is that there isn't that much to talk about between like July 20th and like September 20th. That 2 month window is always often slow. But anyway, thank you, Glenn, for being here. I appreciate it. Everybody should be listening to Daytona 129, following Glenn. I'm on Glenn's page. I'm a patron of Glenn's. Great stuff there. Twitter, Who's Guy, etc. Must follow if you're a Hawks fan. I don't say that lightly. Actual must follow. As for everybody else listening to this podcast, please listen to Locked On Hawks. Subscribe to Locked On Hawks. We'll be covering Summer League on the ground in Vegas all the way through, so stay tuned for that. And we'll see everybody next time.